You know what time it is? It's time for the next all-new, fun-filled, action-packed story adventure on the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. You lucky people, you. And here we are back over in Randyland. And people who walk by my old Woolworths building, which is on the corner of Wildwood Avenue and Pacific Avenue, they see in the corner ice cream machines. And they wonder to themselves, was this an ice cream parlor? No, it wasn't. It was a Woolworths. But I had envisioned expanding out my lunch counter to the corner and making the corner an ice cream parlor where you could serve ice cream right through the side window and have people enjoy ice cream back like when I was a kid at the Tasty Freeze down in North Lavalette and all these fun things like that. So why would you want to go in the ice cream business? Because I was in the ice cream business. When I was in Seaside Heights, we had opened Svensson's Ice Cream right in the front of Fascination. And it did very, very well. And it was my first adventure into the ice cream concession food business. Cost a lot of money. Ice cream machines are not cheap. You have to understand this. When you go and you see the guy pull the handle and he's twisting that cone, those ice cream machines are a small fortune. There's a few main brands that make ice cream machines. The well-known one is Electro-Freeze, Cold Light, Taylor products. I think there's one called Stolten or something like this, a little lower end. But the one you see a lot of times in McDonald's or things of this nature is Taylor, because they're a big national company all over the place, and they have service all over the place, and they make these machines. Although the Electro-Freeze in the ice cream business is generally thought of as the better machine, the Taylor machine had the name as far as the more serviceability on it. So of course we went to go buy ice cream machines. Well, you know how much one of those two-head ice cream machines costs? This is back in 1989. No, it was a little later, 1991, maybe in that area in Seaside. One two-head twin ice cream machine was almost $19,000 for one. Now, that's, of course, not including tax or shipping. So you can't afford to get a bunch of ice cream machines new unless you're some major conglomerate that has a lot of money, you know, from some corporate entity. So you look for used equipment. And I found some ice cream machines in Florida, of all places. Well, at that time, all these frozen yogurt places were popping up all over, and not all of them survived, but they usually started with new equipment. So I found a place that had failed, and they were selling off their Taylor 754s, and they were soft touch, you know, with the buttons and all that stuff. It was a modern unit. They were only a couple of years old, and they wanted like $3,500 a machine, which was really, really far different than almost $19,000 a machine. All right, now it's used, I get that, but these really were a bargain. So now you can't buy one when you've got a price like that. You have to buy a few, because now you're going to have a used machine which might not be as reliable, and you're getting a great price. So right away we're going to buy two. Then it was going to be, well, maybe we should take three. So I think we ended up with four. So now you're right up, you know, you're back into the $15,000 range. And all right, so you got four machines instead of one. It's a great deal. Now you got to ship them. Well, you know what? They weigh a lot. They're stainless steel. They're very, very heavy. They're hard to even push. So now how are you going to ship them back? Well, hey, let's rent a truck and we'll drive them up from Florida ourselves. That'll save on shipping. Well, now you got to go rent a truck. Well, you got to get one that has a lift gate in order to get the stuff into the truck, because how are you going to get it in or out of the truck? Certainly not, you know, they're ice cream machines. So at that time, we rented a truck from Budget, which was done through Sears. I don't think they do truck rentals anymore. And we told them what we were moving and, you know, where it's going, and they said, you know, we rented the truck. Great. Loaded up the truck, rolling up to New Jersey, and you got to go through the truck way stations along the way on I-95. So we pulled through a way station in, I believe it was North Carolina. It could have been South Carolina because it was right at that border, but I think it was North Carolina. And they turn the light red and they pull us over to the side. Well, what's this about? I don't know. We've never gone through a truck. You know, it's a rented truck. What could be wrong? We're overweight. What do you mean we're overweight? It's a rented truck. I mean, there's only 4 ice cream machines in the whole truck. That's all that's in there. The truck is empty. 4 ice cream machines. We're overweight. So now they got us pulled to the side and they want us to pay a fine for being overweight. And they want the registration. So you're calling up budget and they can't even answer you on the telephone, and they've got the registration hidden in the truck and they're trying to tell you where it is. They had the truck registered for a cargo of about 1,500 pounds. And I said to the people at Budget, I said, if I filled this truck with feathers, it would be 15,000 pounds. I'm only carrying 4 ice cream machines. How could it be that you don't have this truck registered for enough cargo weight that it could carry 4 ice cream machines? The whole truck is empty. It's all I'm carrying for. Well, be that as it may, we're getting detained and we're getting a ticket and we have to pay. When we can't leave without paying it, and they want cash to the penny. They will not even give you change. You have to and it's not an even amount. It's coming up to like, $268.22. So you got to try to find this money in your pockets, whatever. So I remember we came up with the money, just, barely came up with the money, and we're a couple dollars over because it was at like $25 instead of $22. You have to have we don't provide change. All right, well, keep the change. No, we're not allowed to do that. You have to have exact change to the penny. So you're looking for pennies. I mean, this is absurd. You're going to hold people here, and we actually found enough coin to make the exact thing. And I said to the guy, afterwards, I says, what would happen if we hadn't found the pennies to make the exact thing? He says, well, they would have had to send somebody from their corporation to come and bring the exact change because you couldn't leave here until you paid the exact change to the penny. What kind of nonsense is that? You can't take a credit card, you can't, nothing. You have to have cash to the penny. Now, I don't know if they still do it that way, and that was 1990 in that area, but that's absurd. I mean, that's really absurd. So that's the start. That's only the beginning of the story of ice cream machines. So now we write them up. Now, mind you, of course, you're doing this not in the summer because you're getting ready for the spring, and it's cold. Maybe it was February, and there was still some snow on the ground. Okay, we get the ice cream machines up to Seaside. We get them off the truck, roll them up the ramp, get them in there. They're in the front. Okay, great. Now, this is only the beginning because now you're going to have to get the plumbers to come, and they're going to have to run the special hose connections and the drains because they're water cooled. What does that mean? Well, instead of having a fan blowing through fins to release the heat from the compressor and the evaporator coil, instead of evaporator coil with fins going through air, they have it wrapped with water in a coil so the water runs around the heated copper to cool it. And that water typically goes down the drain. So you're wasting a lot of water, but they're very efficient compared to the air ones. And you're in an open air stand in the summer where it's going to be blowing hot air and they're not going to cool efficiently. So you had to get the water cooled units. Unfortunately, what happens is water cooled units, the coil freezes because there's water in the coil. Well, I didn't know that. I'm not a refrigeration guy. I didn't know I have to somehow drain the water out of these coils. The guy who refurbished them was from Taylor of Orlando, and he knew they were going to New Jersey. He water tested them, didn't take the water out of the coils. So after we get the plumber to put in all the fixtures we needed, the electrician to come in and put the heavy service that was necessary to pull 30 amps on each side of each one of these machines, and 3-phase, mind you. These machines were pulling a lot of electric, a lot of water. We go to fire them up, and none of them, not one of 4 on either barrel, which is independent, is getting cold. Not one. So we have to call Taylor of New Jersey. They come down to service the machines. Every one of the coils froze and split in the machines and had to be replaced to the tune of about $1,000 per coil. 8 coils. It was over $8,000 to repair the machines that we just bought that were refurbished and ready to go because they didn't take the water out of it. This is all before we ever even opened the doors, served the first ice cream cone. I mean, this is like sensory overload with the amount of money that is getting dumped into this ice cream stand. Then we bought some dipping counters because I wanted to have a hard ice cream. And again, I made a deal with somebody in Daytona area, and it was from a Baskin Robbins that had gone out of business, and I bought their dipping counters and some other odds and ends that were from like waffle cone bakers and, you know, waffle makers and things of this nature. So we bought them, and they shipped it to Florida, and they shipped everything up, including a forklift, which we purchased, but they couldn't fit the forklift on the truck, so they arrive without the forklift, which we purchased, and now you can't get the stuff off the truck, and they didn't want to give you any kind of compensation other than, we'll tell you what, we'll give you $500 off. Well, you paid more than $500 for the forklift you didn't bring. Well, you could have it shipped yourself. What are you kidding? This is the disaster of setting up an ice cream stand. Nobody has any clue what goes on. Then you got to find out how to make ice cream. Well, now you got to call who's selling the products and things of this nature. And they had some really good people out of Welsh Farms that were selling soft serve, and they were mainly selling to Core Brothers. Everybody knows Core Brothers on the boardwalk. They were a big account, so of course they're going to sell to us also. And we want the best quality, because when you're getting ice cream mix for soft serve machines, there's different quality levels. And if you're below, I think it's, if you're 4% or below of fat in the ice cream mix, that's not ice cream, that's ice milk. The fat content, the higher the fat content, makes the fluffier, more quality ice cream. So you go up to a 12%. I think they might even have a special mix, which is a 14%. But the salesman told us, don't use anything over 10, because the difference is not even tasteable in the ice cream, and what happens is the fat will actually gum up your machine. He says, so 10 is the highest you really want to run, so we ran a 10% mix. Other places were running 5%, which was far cheaper, because nobody really knew the difference. They knew they liked ice cream from one place, but they didn't know why. It was the mix. So Coors was using 10%, we were using 10%, cost a lot of money, and we used gravity-fed machines. Now, those people who don't know anything about ice cream machines, typically, ice cream from a soft serve machine is pumped with air. Well, why do they do that? Because it makes it fluffier, like whipped cream, and you save a ton of money on product, because when that ice cream comes out onto your cone, you got this nice big ice cream, but it doesn't have a lot of weight because it's all fluffed up with air. Well, pump machines, they cost a little bit more because you got the extra pump mechanism, but you have to clean these machines. And cleaning the machines is very difficult. It takes an hour easily for one machine. After you got a pump now you got to clean, you can add more time to that hour. So I chose to use gravity-fed machines because it was less time cleaning them, cost me more money in product, but you were getting a better product to begin with. So I didn't mind spending the money for the product, even though I was selling the same price ice cream cones as Coors and everybody else. But one interesting thing was when I handed you a large ice cream cone and we made them big, your hand went down with the weight when I handed you that cone. It doesn't happen like that other places because they're fluffing it full of air. So one of the gimmicks I used at Svensson's Ice Cream was we had the regular and we had the giant colossal. Well, the regular, we used the same size cone as Coors used for their large. So my regular was the size of Coors Large. But when you got the giant colossal, I had to order special cones that nobody used because they were huge, huge cones. And I told the kids, when you're swirling the ice cream on it, keep swirling till your hand hits the bottom drip plate. Make it nice and tall, because it's a giant colossal. Because you had a big cone support, you could do it. When you got handed a giant colossal, you felt the weight of that cone. It was ridiculous. It was this high. And people were walking down the boardwalk in Seaside with these giant ice cream cones, and everybody's looking at them like, where did you get that giant ice cream cone? Over at Svensson's, over there on Webster Avenue by Fascination. People loved Svensson's ice cream. Well, Coors was getting a little disturbed by seeing all these giant colossals going down the boardwalk. And they tried to make a big cone, but they couldn't do it. And they couldn't figure out why. How am I getting those cones like that? And people walking down carrying these cones. They tried to make a cone, and the ice cream would fall over. Nobody, and they're experienced cone, and they fall over, this and the other. They sent actual people over that worked for Coors to try to find out how I was able to make these giant colossal cones. What, are you kidding me? Now, I grant you, my father was in the ice cream business when he was a little boy. His father was in the ice cream business. He had the first one who had an ice cream machine on a truck. Everybody back then had it on a horse and wagon in Down Neck, Newark. So he had some experience, but that's not the secret of the giant colossal. The secret is not being cheap. Okay? Because I used gravity-fed machines. The product was not full of air. When you pile it up that high, if your product is all full of air, it can't sustain it. It's going to collapse. There's no foundation to it. It's going to collapse on itself. It's going to fall over. But my ribbon of ice cream was solid. It was thick because it was not pumped with air from a gravity-fed machine. So I could pile it up and you could walk along with it. You could suck that. Everybody loved it. Well, now you know the secret. And you can do it too, but you can't use your pump and gain all that profit by pumping all the air into your product. There's no reason for them to do it because I'm no longer selling ice cream on the boardwalk and there's no giant colossal to fight against. But here we go. I lose my location in Seaside, and now I got to move somewhere else, and I brought it down to Wildwood. And I had a smaller spot in the front of Fascination at the Big Top Carnival of Fun, multi-level extravaganza and amusement arcade museum. I had all these machines, and then, of course, I ended up with a Cold-A-Light. Now, the Cold-A-Light was an air pump machine, and it was faster to do a cone because when you pulled that handle, it was under pressure. And people didn't mind on a regular cone. You would try to use the Cold-A-Light because you could pump those cones out faster. But those Cold-A-Light pumps were a problem. And you might remember one of my other episodes, I talked about the Cold-A-Light shake machine, which decided one day to hold a pocket of pressure when I took off the stem to clean it, and it erupted like a volcano and went shooting ice cream shake mix all over the ceiling, and that was only the day after the hot fudge can exploded all over the ceiling. Be sure to watch that episode too. But these are the machines over here now at Randyland, my very same machines. These are my dipping counters that came from Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors, and in here right now I have Randy Heads because we're not serving ice cream, and I figured this is the perfect place for Randy Heads. I wonder if we can get a mold made for Randy Head ice cream cakes. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Have an ice cream Randy Head right on your table for your birthday. You could put a couple candles in the top there. Up here is Papa Svensson. Can you see him? At the angle you're at, he is motorized. He moves back and forth at his waist. His arm goes up and down. I had an ice cream cone in his hand, and that would be Svensson. And I used to tell the guys when they were working at the ice cream stand in Seaside that when people came to the counter and they weren't really busy, they would greet them and they would go, "Welcome to Svensson's. Svensson's has the best ice cream." And I would tell them, you have to do a little bounce, a little bounce. "Welcome to Svensson's. Svensson's has the best ice cream." And I wanted them to do that with the V instead of the W, not Swenson, Svensson's, with the best ice cream with the accent.
You gotta do it with the proper Swedish accent. You go, "Welcome to Svensson's. Svensson's has the best ice cream." with a little bounce. You gotta bounce your teeth. It's welcome to Svenssons. Svenssons has the best ice cream. Try it now.
Welcome to Svenssons.
Svenssons has the best ice cream.
This was the best ice cream.
You see? Now try it with the customers and you'll see how much better you do.
But for some reason, they didn't want to do it. I couldn't get them to do it. They felt dumb. I don't know how. It's not dumb. You have the little bounce, little welcome to Svenssons. And the Russian kids were the best with the accent. As you try to get them to say welcome to Svenssons, they can't do it because everything is avich and this. So it was difficult. But I always did it. We had our paper hats, the traditional 50s paper hats, and they didn't want to wear the paper hats either. They felt they looked dumb. Well, excuse me. It's a job. We're trying to have a theme. What's wrong with wearing the paper hat and going welcome to Svenssons? Wouldn't you stand there and go welcome to Svenssons with the little bounce? Svenssons has the best ice cream. It's wonderful. And people say, where do you get this idea of Svensson and Papa Svensson? We should tell them Papa Svensson's 145 years old, doesn't look a day over 130. And people would, they love this. That was the extra personality, the extra flair, the theming of what you did. Well, it came from an old Judy Garland movie is where it came from. And I don't remember even the movie, but I saw it in the Judy Garland, the kids were over at this sweet shop and they were, playing the piano, and the guy behind the counter was S.K. Sakal, the guy who they always called him Cuddles. He was like a character actor in hundreds of pictures back in the days, and he was Austrian or something. He had the accent like that, and he was Papa Svensson, So this is where it came from, Svensson's ice cream, and it was wonderful. But Papa Svensson is here. We had the cotton candy machine. We had the popcorn machine. We had the nachos with cheese. We had the waffle cones being fresh baked. My father used to love to be out at the ice cream stand because it made him feel like a kid. And he would be making the ice cream, and of course he ate a lot of ice cream, and he liked making the waffle cones, and he liked making the cotton candy, and we even made the cotton candy giant. The giant cotton candy going all the way up. We made it look like the blue ones were like Marge Simpson's hair, and we'd go up like this. The Marge Simpson cotton candy. You try to get it in a bag, you couldn't get it in a bag. The thing is giant. I think this is the problem. People want giant, you can't get it. Then they want a bag. You can't get it in a bag. How do you get it in a bag? But this cotton candy machine came from the Palace Amusements in Asbury Park, as did the popcorn machine. That popcorn machine was from the concession stand right next to the merry-go-round in the Palace Amusements in Asbury Park. So my ice cream machines are over here, and you'll see them. That on the right is the Cold Light shake machine, the famous exploding volcano shake machine. Next to that is one of your Taylor 754s. Then you have your Cold Light twin head, which has the pump, and he is the one that comes out fast. An interesting thing with the Cold Light, it uses one compressor for both barrels. Unlike the Taylor's, uses two compressors, independent, one on each side. Well, when the Cold Light compressor gets stuck, and sometimes compressors get stuck and they don't start, they overheat and shut down on thermal. Well, you don't know that the compressor has shut down at thermal. When you go to pull that handle, you assume that it's ready to dispense your ice cream and it's going to come out nice. But when you have a pressure machine and the compressor is shut down on thermal and the product in the barrels is not frozen because it has shut down on thermal, it's cold, but it's not frozen. You pull the handle, it blows the cone right out of your hand, and there's ice cream all over you because there's no restriction pushing out a harder ice cream on it. Things blows your hand. So everybody wore aprons, and very often the Cold Light machine would give you a little surprise. So I used to tell them, just crack the handle a little bit, see if it spits out hard, and then you know what to do. So another Taylor over in the corner, and then over on the other side, of course, we have four more. There's one Taylor 751 that's a single head, and then, of course, two more Taylor 754s that all came from Florida. On the top of the machines, you see those cones, those plastic cones? People ask me all the time, can I buy one of those cones for their ice cream place? Well, I cannot sell them one of those cones. Why? Because they are unbelievably rare and unbelievably expensive. They're a very light blow plastic, and they turn, and there's a light in the middle of it on a stem light bulb, which gets warm, and eventually it causes the plastic to get brittle, and the cones turn slowly on a motor base. Back in 1989, 1991, to buy one of those Taylor cones, you had to be in the ice cream business with Taylor machines. You had to buy it from Taylor, and they were about $400 each back then. You can't get them today. They don't make them. If they did, they'd be $1,000 something easily. People who want one of those cones, if they know what it is, then they're a collector because they know what that cone is. And there aren't a lot of ice cream stores who bought a lot of them because they cost so much money. And I had one on the top of the 4 machines in Seaside that were the 754s. I eventually ended up with 8 of them because the wind in an open air stand would beat up my cones, and I eventually bought extra cones. So I had backups. Yes, $400, $500 a pop, didn't matter, because I had to have it just right. I had to have my Taylor cones. So I have one on the top of each machine here. This one got damaged. 2 of them. You see the 2 of them there? They got damaged about a year or so ago because there was a big windstorm that blew up, and it blew benches and garbage cans, all that stuff down the street coming from Pacific Avenue, and one of them blew right into my window. You see the windows all held together now with plywood supports. It crashed it through the window, broke my 2 Taylor cones on the floor, and I was out there when the wind calmed down in the rain, patching that together again with new polycarbonate until I had a window again so that the rest of the stuff didn't get destroyed. But things happen over your lifetime, and this is the story of being in the ice cream business. And as an extra little bonus, sometimes you pick up extra stuff. You know, they stopped making those cones, but then they came out with this. And this was built to go on your 754. It has like a wedge on the back that sits on the top of your machine, and you would serve your ice cream handles right here to get your ice cream from your giant cone. And this is made by Taylor also, and this is another very expensive thing. Not many of them around. This one I did not buy from Taylor. I acquired that from the Nut Hut in Wildwood, New Jersey. People say, oh, they remember the Nut Hut. The Nut Hut was really nice. And, the Franks family, they did a great job with the Nut Hut, and they had that on one of their machines. And I bought several things when the Nut Hut closed. And, of course, I had to have that to go along with my Taylor machines. So another piece of history, Americana, that exists in my story. So this is the story of ice cream. It's a lengthy story, but it's a valuable story because every business has its idiosyncrasies. My father loved the ice cream stand. It was his thing. He would sit in fascination and do his newspaper, but he loved working at the ice cream stand. Why? Because it made him a kid again. The memories we form as a child, they're our foundation that grow with us. And when we become adults, we still have those childhood memories. They're very, very important. And if somebody doesn't have a good childhood, it's hurtful. It's very harmful for their entire life. So I hope you have good memories, and if you have kids, give them the best childhood you can, because you're making memories that are going to be the foundation of who they are all of their life. I'm still a little kid on the boardwalk playing games. I'm still the one who's living the dream, and I'm still little Randy doing it. And I'll do it, I guess, until I can't do it anymore. So with that happy note, we'll say thanks for joining us. I hope you found this interesting and educational about being in the ice cream business from the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, guys.